For a lot of players, the Soulsborne genre started with Demon Souls or Dark Souls, but both of those titles owe a lot to FromSoftware's first game, King's Field. Almost 30 years later, we have Elden Ring, the developer's latest and most ambitious title. Does the game manage to hit every expectation? Or does its soul wither and fade? Find out in our review. Hey folks, if you enjoy this review, be sure to hit that like, subscribe, notification button. It's 3 small clicks for you, but means the world to us. Let's get started. The story of Elden Ring is precisely what you might expect. The high fantasy world is a twisted and gnarled version of its former glory, as ruin has fallen upon the land. You are a Tarnished, an exiled person who has returned to the lands between to seek the great ruins, the shards of the now broken Elden Ring, defeat the demigods who hold them, and become the Elden Lord. But that is only part of the story and the main objective for the player. The actual narrative and lore is just as rich and interwoven as players have come to anticipate, offering only the slightest insight into the world they're exploring. Information can be gleaned from optional dialogue, reading item descriptions, and of course, looking at the environment and drawing your own conclusions. One of the big marketing pushes for the game was that George R.R. Martin was involved in the creation of the game's backstory, setting the foundation on which the current day story unfolds. While I could not definitely point to an element and say, this is clearly George R.R. Martin's work, the underlying narrative feels far grander than what has come before. It is positively dripping with mythology and legends that will no doubt be investigated by lore aficionados.
That is the guidance of grace, a path that a Tarnished must travel.
The sense of discovery and clarifying moments of the story are as impactful as they've ever been in the Soulsborne series of games. Elements of the world are slowly revealed, adding layers of knowledge while simultaneously shirking expectations. Like previous titles, NPCs make up a large portion of the storytelling effort. These characters have their own goals and often request the player's assistance. And like the games that came before, the player will likely understand little, but accept all requests, if only to see what happens next.
Oh yes, Tarnished are we? Come to the lands between for the Elden Ring,
It feels as though Elden Ring is FromSoftware's original vision for the genre finally realized. Like all that came before were a series of stepping stones that the developer had been walking along in order to reach this point. Though the core gameplay on offer here is unchanged from the formula that was laid out with Demon Souls, it has been polished to a glistening sheen. The combat is brutal and precise, utilizing the health, stamina, and magic meters to guide the pacing of encounters, forcing players to juggle resources. Sorceries and incantations return, giving spellcasters a variety of elemental-based attacks, as well as defensive and supporting options. Range players can utilize bows and crossbows with ease, while sword and board players will find a treasure trove of options. On top of all these staples in the series are new Ashes of War and Spirits. Ashes of War are abilities that can be applied to your weapons, offering a sort of special attack or enhancement. These range from classic kick and parry moves to ones that boost the damage of your next attack, infuse attacks with blood power, offer greater protection, and dozens more. Think of them like you would spells. As for spirits, these are ghostly allies you can summon to aid you in battle. Not anywhere near as powerful as an actual NPC summon. These are more like trash mobs that offer some distraction or just a bit of extra assistance. A personal favorite of mine is a jellyfish called Aurelia that uses a long-range poison attack. Weapons and spirits can be upgraded using the series' iconic smithing system, whereby attack thresholds can only be overcome by collecting the stronger version of an upgrade material. Thankfully, weapon affinity and intrinsic elemental damage can be changed at no cost, allowing the player to switch between things like a standard affinity, quality affinity for stat scaling damage, and things like fire and frost damage. Ever since Dark Souls, the genre has been a quasi-open world experience. Players could, in some instances, go to just about anywhere in the map at any time, provided they knew the path. Now, Elden Ring has fully embraced the open world format, allowing players to venture to the far corners of the world, with the only obstacles being the challenges they face along the way. To aid you in exploration of the lands between is your steed, Torrent, which can be summoned instantly. Torrent is capable of double jumping and using gusts of winds to leap to great heights. The horse is also instrumental during some larger boss fights, where speed is key, allowing you to gallop in on horseback, swinging your sword as you go. Thankfully, Torrent is available right out of the gates, which alleviates any of the potential tedium that can come with exploring such a vast open world. Better yet, where other open world games falter with content between the major locations, Elden Ring is positively packed with little moments and treats to discover. Quite often, I would be galloping toward the next major landmark on the horizon, only to be distracted by a band of soldiers marching along the road, or a major enemy defending a doorway on the side of a cliff. There are also classic open world tropes, cleverly disguised in a way that only FromSoftware can do. There are sorcerer towers dotted on the map, locked until you can solve its puzzle, which grants you access to the top, where a reward awaits. Players can also discover paintings of locations in the world, and if they manage to find the area depicted, a treasure can be earned.
There you are, my apprentice. Shall we commence the lesson?
Crafting is also a new addition, allowing players to gather resources from the land and enemies. These resources are used to craft things like arrows and bolts, coatings for weapons, and consumables to rid yourself of ailments or buff your stats. Other open world games should take heed, as Elden Ring does not bog you down when it comes to resource gathering. A simple tap of a button and the item is in your inventory. No arduous collecting animation. The game even allows you to collect resources while galloping along on your horse. I was consistently in awe of the size and level of detail in the world's construction. What I took to be a flat plateau when looking at the beautifully hand-drawn map was in fact a winding ravine full of foliage. Similarly, the world uses imagery that is unlike anything in a Soulsborne game to date. The environments are breathtaking and surreal, both horrifying with its monstrosities and grotesque oddities, and beautiful with its stunning landscapes. Speaking of the map, it does eventually become dotted with icons that you discover, be it a bonfire-like sites of grace that act as fast travel points, or icons of buildings, caves, and structures you find. Unlike other open-world games, these don't get crossed off or faded out once searched, so it will be up to the player to remember where you've been.
You are fated, it seems, to die in obscurity.
The scope of the world in Elden Ring left me absolutely floored. Just when I thought there was no new experience or new vista, my jaw would hit the floor as some incredible sight or devious surprise revealed itself. I underestimated what was on offer here. It's a bigger and richer world in any of the other titles in FromSoftware's illustrious catalog. FromSoftware has made a name for itself with its Soulsborne series of games. There's a certain level of challenge that is expected, and that remains true with Elden Ring, though it isn't as immediately difficult or a shock to the system as Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Elden Ring provided me with ample challenge in boss fights and in general exploration. As with all these titles, a boss that is difficult for one may be a breeze for another, but as with previous games, it's possible to alleviate some of the difficulty just by dumping points into health. On top of this, thanks to the open world format, you can choose to go elsewhere and try another area out. You might opt to completely circumvent the first boss, choosing to venture further north or even spend hours gathering resources to upgrade your equipment. But at some point, you will need to tackle the game's more linear and claustrophobic locations. These areas highlight the impeccable level design the team at FromSoftware is capable of delivering, corralling and defeating enemies as you leap over roofs. Thanks to the handy jump button, in search of the next site of grace is a stressful experience, as is weighing up whether to push forward or return to a previous resting point to level up. The environment will also form a challenge. Seeing a location in the distance and musing how to reach it provided a different sort of puzzle. More than once, I would place a marker on my map and work my way there, only to realize it was either hundreds of feet down a ravine or up some seemingly unscalable cliff. These challenges can also be enhanced or reduced with the summoning of both NPC and real players. After a brief hiatus of multiplayer with Sekiro, it's a joy to be able to dive once more into a rich Soulsborne title with allies, or invade another player's game to spread a little bit of mischief. Elden Ring is nearly a flawless experience, were it not for a few hiccups with the Steed torrent and some frame rate issues, likely due to dated hardware. As for the issues with the horse, there were a few times upon trying to summon it, the horse would not appear, but my character would float in midair until he fell to his death. On the hardware front, those with older PC setups beware. Elden Ring is a demanding beast. Even on medium settings, my Nvidia GTX 1080 Ti and AMD Ryzen 7 1700X 8-core 3.4 gigs struggled at times, specifically when there were a lot of enemies or when the massive vistas were on screen. In saying this, these faults were eclipsed by everything else on offer in Elden Ring. Simply put, Elden Ring is Miyazaki and FromSoftware's magnum opus. It feels like the vision for the genre has reached its final form. Elden Ring is a meticulously crafted game, with the world begging to be explored and experienced. It is truly mesmerizing in its scope, an astonishing success, and everything I'd hoped it would be. Forget about what you knew about the genre. The real Soulsborne starts here, with Elden Ring. Hey folks, if you enjoyed this video review, be sure to hit that like, subscribe, notification button. It's 3 small clicks for you, but means the world to us. For more video reviews and everything else gaming related, you're already in the right place. You're on Shacknews.com.